An emperor, a slave, and a philosopher. Three men separated by wealth, power, and destiny, all bound by one idea, that freedom begins the moment you realize it's not the events that define you, but the way you respond to them. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the world, ruling Rome at its height. Epictetus, a man born in chains who discovered freedom through his own mind. Seneca, a statesman navigating the politics and poison of Nero's court. Three lives that couldn't be more different, and yet all of them follow the same path, the path of Stoicism. For over 2,000 years, Stoicism has been the philosophy of survival. It's guided soldiers, writers, emperors, and thinkers. From Theodore Roosevelt, who carried meditations through his presidency, to Nelson Mandela, who studied Epictetus while imprisoned on Robben Island. Even today, Stoicism quietly shapes how the world's most disciplined people live. Navy SEALs study it for composure under stress. Athletes like Tom Brady and Serena Williams use Stoic focus to master performance. And in therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, one of the most effective modern treatments for anxiety, is directly based on Stoic principles. So no, Stoicism isn't just ancient history, it's the framework we still turn to when life gets difficult. But every great philosophy begins somewhere, and this one didn't start in a palace and in comfort. It began in disaster, with one man who lost everything. In this video, we're not just talking about Stoicism, we're entering its world. We'll begin where it all started, with the story of Zeno of Citium, the man who lost everything and turned his ruin into philosophy. Then, we'll move through time into the heart of Rome to meet the three great Stoics who gave the philosophy its human face. Finally, we'll dive into the heart of Stoic teaching itself, the core ideas that connect them all. So, by the end of the video, you won't just know the name of philosophers. You'll understand how they thought, how they lived, and how their ideas can change the way you see your own life today. Our story begins not in a temple or a library, but on the open sea. The man at the center of it is Zeno of Citium, a wealthy merchant from the island of Cyprus. He wasn't a philosopher, not yet. He was a man of trade, born into the salt and sunlight of the Mediterranean. His business, the most prized color in the ancient world, Tyrian purple, a dye made from crushed sea snails, so rare and difficult to produce that it was worth more than gold. Only kings and generals wore it, a symbol of divine status and power. For Zeno, the trade was everything. It gave him status, wealth, and purpose, until the day it took it all away. One voyage, somewhere between Phoenicia and the Greek mainland, his ship met a storm. The sky darkened, the wind tore the sails apart. Cargo rolled and crashed across the deck. The purple dye, his fortune, spilled into the waves. Hours later, when the sea calmed, the ship was gone. Everything he owned sank beneath the surface. Somehow, Zeno survived, clinging to broken planks, washed ashore near Athens. Imagine that moment, soaked, penniless, a stranger in a foreign city. The man who once sold color to kings now stood with nothing but the clothes on his back. And guess where Zeno ends up? That's right, in Athens. A century later, after Socrates, right after Plato had founded the academy, Aristotle had taught his students to observe and reason. According to legend, he wandered into a small bookshop to rest. There, he picked up a scroll. It told the story of Socrates. Zeno read how Socrates faced death calmly, how he questioned every assumption, and how he believed virtue, not wealth, not status, was the only true good. It struck him like lightning. When he asked the bookseller where he could find philosophers like Socrates, the man pointed to a teacher passing by and said, "Follow him." and that's what Zeno did. He began studying under different schools. The Cynics, who taught that happiness came from rejecting luxury and living simply. The Academics, who searched for abstract truth. And the Megarians, masters of logic. Each gave him something, but none of them felt complete. The Cynics despised society. The Platonists ignored the body. And the Sophists, we know about them, sold wisdom for a price. Zeno wanted a philosophy that could survive in the real world, one that could endure loss, chaos, and change. Eventually, he began to teach his own ideas, not in temples, but in the agora, the public square. And you know why my channel is called Karos Agora. His classroom was a simple porch decorated with painted panels. The Stoa Poikile, or the painted porch. That's where Stoicism got its name. The Stoa Poikile, the painted porch. His students weren't scholars or elites. They were ordinary people, sailors, traders, craftsmen, people like him. And what he taught was simple, but revolutionary.
Man conquers the world by conquering himself.
You cannot control what happens to you, only how you respond. The sea may take your ship, fortune may turn, life may wound you, but your mind, your reason, and your virtue remain your own. And that, he said, is freedom. By the time Stoicism reached Rome, the empire was already too big for its own peace. Armies marched across the world, senators plotted in marble halls, and philosophy, once a humble search for virtue, had become a tool for those trying to survive power. In this world stood Lucius Annaeus Seneca. He wasn't a detached monk, he was a politician in the world's most dangerous court. Seneca was born in Spain, but raised in Rome, trained in rhetoric, a rising star in politics, known for his sharp tongue and sharper mind.
We suffer more often in imagination than in reality.
In 41 CE, Emperor Claudius' wife, Messalina, accused Seneca of having an affair with Princess Julia Livilla, Caligula's sister. Whether true or not, Seneca was exiled to Corsica for 8 years. All this time, he lived in isolation. His career gone, his reputation shattered. In that isolation, he confronted his mind's tendency to exaggerate fear and misery. He realized that suffering grows when imagination runs wild, when we tell ourselves endless stories about what might happen. This became one of Stoicism's most famous lessons. The mind can make or unmake our peace.
The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. Therefore, guard accordingly.
He wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." And that line, written almost 2,000 years ago, still hits something raw in us today. Because we all do it, don't we? We replay conversations that never happened. We imagine worst-case scenarios that never come. We lose sleep over futures that don't exist. Our minds are master storytellers, but not always kind ones. Seneca realized that most of our pain doesn't come from what the world does to us, but from what we do to ourselves in thought. On that island, with nothing left to distract him, he saw the truth. The mind can be a prison, or it can be a fortress. Stoicism teaches us to notice that difference, to ask, is this thing really happening, or am I just imagining it? Because reality, Seneca found, is rarely as cruel as our fears about it.
It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor.
In 49 CE, a powerful woman entered Seneca's story, Agrippina the Younger, sister of Caligula and mother of a young boy named Nero. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, but I'll pronounce it this way. Agrippina convinced the Emperor Claudius to recall Seneca from exile and appoint him as a tutor to Nero. This was a brilliant political move. Seneca had the intellect and prestige to educate a future emperor, and Agrippina wanted to appear cultured and moral. Seneca returned to Rome and began one of the most complicated jobs in history, shaping the mind of a ruler. At first, Seneca believed he could shape Nero into a just ruler, a philosopher king. But power devours ideas. As Nero's paranoia grew, Seneca became a spectator to cruelty he wouldn't control. Executions, betrayals, excess, all carried out by a boy he had raised. And yet he stayed. Some called him a hypocrite, others a survivor. But in those years, Seneca's writings changed tone, from idealism to realism,
Luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity.
from theory to endurance.
If a man knows not to which port he sails, no wind is favorable.
Seneca stood at the heart of power, advising emperors, living in luxury, and yet he wrote more passionately about moderation than any beggar in Rome. He'd seen the palace from the inside. He knew that the more you have, the more you fear losing it. He wrote, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, who is poor." Isn't that still true? Today, our palaces just look different. Their careers, followers, status, appearance. But the craving feels the same. Stoicism wasn't about rejecting wealth. It was about never becoming its servant. Seneca had everything, and it nearly destroyed him. That's why he could tell us what truly matters.
It is not that we have so little time, but that we lose so much. The life we receive is not short, but we make it so.
As Nero's rule darkened, Seneca withdrew from politics. He turned inward to the one place where a philosopher still had freedom, his mind. He began writing to a younger man named Lucius, letters that would outlive the empire. In them, Seneca transformed Stoicism from an abstract theory into a human voice. "It is not that we have a short time to live," he wrote, "but that we waste much of it." He confessed how easily even the wise are distracted by wealth, vanity, gossip. He urged Lucius and himself to guard time like treasure. When you read him, it's like he's whispering across centuries. You're not busy, you're distracted. And that's the challenge he leaves us, to live on purpose, not on autopilot. Seneca reminds us that every hour spent with awareness is a form of eternity.
You act like mortals in all that you fear, and like immortals in all that you desire.
The Stoics believed people waste life by planning to live later. Philosophy isn't for retirement, it's for right now. If Seneca represented Stoicism in the palace, Epictetus represented it in the workshop. Born in chains, yet freer than most of those who ruled him. He was born around 50 CE in the Greek city of Hierapolis, in modern-day Turkey, at the height of the Roman Empire. His name, Epictetus, literally means acquired, because he was not born free. He was a slave in the household of Epictetus, a powerful freedman who served Emperor Nero. Life in such a household was dangerous. The emperor's court was full of suspicion and cruelty, and even the servants who survived carried scars. But Epictetus had one thing that no one could take away from him: his mind. He studied philosophy whenever he could, listening to lectures from Stoic teachers in secret. One day, when his master twisted his leg in anger, Epictetus warned him, "If you continue, you'll break it." When the bone snapped, he simply said, "There, did I not tell you?" No rage, no self-pity, just observation.
Any person capable of angering you becomes your master. He can anger you only when you permit yourself to be disturbed by him.
That moment would become a symbol of Stoicism itself. The body can be broken, but the will remains untouched.
Small-minded people blame others. Average people blame themselves. The wise see all blame as foolishness.
After Nero's death, Epictetus was freed. He moved to Greece, to a small city called Nicopolis, where he opened a humble philosophy school. He owned nothing, he had no possessions, no wealth, no family, and yet he became one of the most sought-after teachers of his time. Students from across the empire came to hear him speak about how to live with courage and clarity in a world ruled by chaos.
You become what you give your attention to. Curb your desire. Don't set your heart on so many things, and you will get what you need.
His lessons begin where Seneca's left off, with the truth that no one can enslave you unless you let them.
Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control.
Epictetus' most famous idea is also his simplest. Some things are in our control and others are not. That's it. The foundation of the entire Stoic mindset. It sounds obvious, but we forget it every day. We spend our lives trying to control outcomes, people, the past, the future, everything except ourselves. Epictetus said that's why we suffer. We attach our peace to things we don't own. He divided life into two realms: what we can control, our choices, our judgments, our actions, and what we can't control: other people, luck, time, death. True freedom, he said, begins the moment you stop fighting the second realm. Epictetus says, your body, your job, your circumstances, they're not you. What you choose to do with them, that's you. The will cannot be conquered unless you surrender it. By the 2nd century CE, Rome stood at its absolute height. The empire stretched from the sands of Arabia to the forests of Britain. Its armies ruled the world. Its emperors were treated as gods. And at the center of that vast power sat a man who never wanted to rule at all. His name was Marcus Aurelius Autonomous, philosopher, general, emperor. He studied under Stoic teachers, read the works of Epictetus, and wrote his own reflections, not for the world, but for himself. He would later call them simply, To Myself. Today we know them as the Meditations, one of the most intimate and profound books ever written. What makes Marcus extraordinary isn't that he ruled an empire, it's that while ruling it, while commanding armies, he was trying quietly to be a good man.
Don't go on discussing what a good person should be. Just be one.
Marcus ruled through one of Rome's darkest times: plagues, famine, endless wars on the northern frontier. He buried children, lost friends, faced betrayal, and still wrote lines like this:
Accept whatever comes you woven in the pattern of your destiny, for what could more aptly fit your needs?
That is the heart of Stoicism, and the birth of one of the most beautiful ideas in philosophy: amor fati, love your fate. To Marcus, fate wasn't an enemy, it was a sculptor. Every event, every pain, every delay was shaping him into something stronger, clearer, wiser. He didn't just accept what happened, he chose to love it, not because it was easy, but because it was his. And that's what makes Amor Fati so revolutionary. It's not about pretending everything is good. It's about trusting that even the things that break you are building you.
The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way.
In war, Marcus faced constant setbacks, defeated armies, betrayal, sickness. But he refused to see obstacles as interruptions. He wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." This is one of his most famous ideas, the Stoic alchemy of turning obstacles into fuel. When something blocked his plans, Marcus didn't ask, "Why is this happening to me?" He asked, "What quality is this calling me to practice?" A delay teaches patience. A betrayal teaches clarity. A failure teaches humility. We spend our lives waiting for the path to be smooth, but Marcus knew that the path is the roughness. Every obstacle in your life is an invitation to evolve. Before Marcus, Seneca said, "No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself." And if you think about it, nothing in life has ever grown you when it was easy. The heartbreak, the rejection, the uncertainty, those were your teachers. Marcus didn't just theorize that, he lived it. He didn't say, "Ignore the pain." He said, "Use it." Because the moment you stop asking, "Why me?" and start asking, "How can I turn this into strength?" the obstacle stops being an enemy. It becomes your ally.
Everything that happens as it should, and if you observe carefully, you will find this to be so.
The Stoics believe that life is a training ground, and every difficulty is a workout for the soul. When you hit a wall, remember, the Stoics didn't climb over it, they built with it. In a world that worships comfort, Marcus teaches us that resilience isn't a reaction, it's a decision.
The best revenge is not to be like your enemy.
Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king, had been betrayed by one of his closest generals. Wait, please don't exit my video. The setting will change for just a few minutes, but the next story is really worth it. Just listen to it. It's gonna be really good. His name was Avidius Cassius, one of Rome's most brilliant generals. He had served Marcus Aurelius loyally for years, leading legions in wars against Parthia and suppressing revolts in Egypt and Syria. He was brave, disciplined, and ambitious, exactly the kind of man who wins armies and sometimes empires. Far away in the east, a rumor spread: Marcus Aurelius was dead. He'd been sick for months during the wars in the north, and news started to travel quite slowly. So the eastern provinces, they were desperate for stability, so they began to whisper Cassius' name. Some say Cassius was pushed by others, and others say he needed no encouragement. Either way, he declared himself emperor, protector of the East. And in that moment, the most loyal servant of Marcus Aurelius became his rival. So when the news reached Marcus, his officers braced for fury, but there was none. The philosopher emperor read the message, set it down, and simply said, "May the gods grant that no one is killed because of this." He didn't rage, he didn't threaten, he didn't curse. He told his generals to prepare the army, not for vengeance, but for justice. He wrote, "The wrongdoer has done you no harm, for he has not made you worse than you were before." Even betrayed, Marcus refused to hate. Marcus led his forces eastward, but this wasn't a campaign of destruction, it was a campaign of discipline. He ordered his men to treat the provinces kindly, no looting, no punishment. He told them, "We march not against Romans, but against the error of one man." Even as an emperor, Marcus acted like a teacher. He wanted the rebellion ended, but without staining his soul with cruelty. Cassius's reign lasted barely 3 months. Before Marcus could even reach him, Cassius was killed. He was stabbed by his own people who hoped to win favor with the emperor. So when the messengers brought Cassius's head, Marcus turned away. He refused to see it. He ordered that Cassius's family be spared, his allies forgiven, and his name erased from no monument. A single act, Marcus proved what philosophy looks like when it's tested by power. He gathered his officers and said, "We all sinned more gravely than Avidius Cassius. He simply erred in public." He then pardoned everyone who had supported Cassius. No executions, no purges, no confiscations. In a time when betrayal usually meant massacre, Marcus responded with reason. He turned rebellion into a lesson on restraint. He showed that Stoicism wasn't about suppressing emotion, it was about choosing virtue over vengeance. And that, my friends, is self-control. Told you it was worth it.
All cruelty springs from weakness.
Before Marcus, Seneca said, of all the emotions, anger terrified him the most. He called it temporary madness, a fire that burns reason to ash. He warned that anger doesn't punish other, it punishes you. He wrote essays about how to disarm it before it consumes you. His solution? Delay. Don't respond in the first wave of emotion. Wait, observe, let reason return. Anger is a chain. Every time you strike back, it wraps tighter around you. We still fall into that trap, don't we? Someone wrongs us, and our first instinct is to teach them a lesson. But Marcus saw that revenge only turns you into the thing you hate. Aside from his choice of not seeking revenge, he also viewed goodness in a very unique way. There is a line from Marcus Aurelius that's easy to miss, but it cuts right into the heart of Stoicism. He wrote, "The vine produces grapes without looking for things." In one sentence, he exposed a truth about human nature that's still painfully relevant today. Most people do the right thing so that someone sees them doing it. They post it, mention it, hint at it, because being good isn't enough. It has to be acknowledged. But Marcus didn't believe in moral performance. He believed that virtue only counts when it's invisible.
Know you not that a good man does nothing for appearance sake, but for the sake of having done right?
To a Stoic, goodness isn't a transaction, it's identity. You don't help because it's strategic. You help because that's who you are. If there is one thing modern life could learn from Marcus, it's this. Stop outsourcing your sense of worth. Don't let your goodness depend on applause. The Stoic doesn't pose their virtue, they practice it. Rome began to change. His son, Commodus, the opposite of everything his father stood for. He ruled with vanity and violence. And slowly, Stoicism faded from public life. The marble schools of philosophy closed, and the empire turned towards religion, and the Stoics became memories in old manuscripts. But Stoicism didn't die, it simply went underground, hidden in the works of early Christians and in the pens of Renaissance thinkers. And with that rise came a shift in worldview, from reason and self-mastery to faith and divine grace. Stoicism didn't disappear, it simply changed its form. Early Christian thinkers like St. Paul, St. Augustine, and later Thomas Aquinas borrowed Stoic ideas about inner virtue, duty, and brotherhood of humanity. You can even hear echoes of Stoicism in biblical lines like, "Be content in all circumstances," or "Rejoice in suffering." The Stoic calm simply found a new language. Then, during the Enlightenment, Stoic ideas about reason and universal brotherhood influenced writers like Adam Smith, Thomas Jefferson, and even George Washington, who carried a copy of Meditation. And now, in the 21st century, Stoicism is back again. Not in marble forms or dusty scrolls, but in podcasts, therapy, and leadership training. Why? Because the problems of ancient Rome are the same as ours. Distraction, ego, anxiety, ambition, fear.
We are not disturbed by what happens to us, but by our thoughts about what happens to us.
In an age of constant outrage, comparison, and distraction, Stoicism offers something radical: clarity. It teaches that you don't need to control everything, only yourself. That strength isn't about force, it's about focus. And that peace doesn't mean detachment, it means perspective. Maybe that's why this philosophy has survived so many centuries. Because every generation rediscovers the same truth. Life is unpredictable, but character is a choice. Stoicism isn't about rejecting emotion or pretending to be unbreakable. It's about learning to think clearly, act justly, endure bravely, and live deliberately, no matter the century you're in. And here you go, a little guide and overview to Stoicism. Now, I do need to mention that this has been a very brief overview. I think that there is just so many more teachings that are very, very impactful, and they deserve a separate video themselves. For me, Stoicism is important. It's one of those philosophies that completely changed my life, and reading books by Ryan Holiday, who I highly, highly recommend. Probably everyone knows Ryan Holiday, especially if you are interested and passionate about Stoic philosophy. But he's a brilliant author, and he's a great YouTuber as well. He inspires me. And every morning when I don't want to wake up because it's so cozy under my blankets, I tell myself, no, I'm a Stoic. And it really helps.
I am going to do what I was born for. The things I was brought into the world do? Is this what I was created for? To huddle under the blankets and stay warm?
Definitely it teaches you resilience, it teaches you discipline and detachment, but not in a toxic way. I would say in a healthy way, in a I'm not bothered by anyone's BS way. Hope you enjoyed this video, and also I got a mic and I got beautiful lights, so I hope the quality of the video is better as well, so you can hear me better, you can see me better. Maybe I will continue or do a part 2 to Stoicism, because I'd like to add a creative twist to it. I have some ideas, so stay tuned, and thank you so much for watching.